is, let's go and jump into our
That's
Ghostbusters our Afterlife review there. Ghostbusters Afterlife is the newest. I guess we would call it Ghostbusters. I guess it would be considered Ghostbusters 3 at this point.
Entry
or are we going to say it's 4? Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
It's
I guess
3 of the original series.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, you gonna let him get that off because I know how you feel about.
I mean,
the video game.
The game is technically 3. It was written by Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd, and it followed directly after Ghostbusters 2. So it's hard.
Video
to say.
games don't count.
It's 3.5. So yeah.
Or let's go 2.5. Let's do
2.5. Yeah.
All right. Well, then let's do the newest installment to the Ghostbusters franchise, Ghostbusters Afterlife. When a single mother and her 2 children move to a new town, they soon discover they have a connection to the original Ghostbusters and the secret legacy their grandfather left behind. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our review of this. Jason, what was your thoughts of Ghostbusters Afterlife?
I really enjoyed this movie. It was really, really funny. I liked all the cheesy, corny jokes. I enjoyed the nostalgia part of it. And now I'm going to talk shit about it.
Okay.
I could have used a little bit more Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd was not as much of it as I wanted him to be. Finn Wolfhard, fuck Flynn Wolfhard. Like he's probably the most blandest actor of all time. He's just there in this movie. Little girl who they got to play the little girl is
McKenna Grace, Phoebe.
Yeah, she's great. She's probably the best part of this movie. I mean, it's practically her movie to begin with. So yeah. She's awesome in this. She does this job so well. She definitely is channeling Egon Spengler very, very well in this movie. How can poor white women always be, inheriting houses? Like
privilege.
Always is like, oh, we're getting kicked out of our apartment, but hey, guess what? We don't gotta live in the streets because we inherited a house from a dead relative. We're gonna go live in it.
Definitely a movie trope for sure.
It's like it's not that hard to sell the thing, and I'm sure someone would have bought that property. Could have easily been. I don't know how Oklahoma property goes, but here, if it was something here in Georgia, that something that size would have been like $3 million easy.
Oh yeah,
even with that shitty ass house.
You see the rest of that town. I don't think anybody could have afforded.
I'm just saying, if it was in Georgia, it would have been.
Yeah.
The rest of that town, nothing.
Thanks for the come for it in Georgia.
Yeah, like for me, like I hate, and this is just my opinion. It's completely okay to be wrong with this. I just hate like sequels where they just kids do the things that adults did in previous movies, because it's like, oh, it's just kind of lessens the like work they put in, because these guys in the original Ghostbusters were, they had multiple PhDs, and even though that they started doing like a blue collar job of busting ghosts, they did it because they were able to create the technology and be there and do all that stuff, and then this 12-year-old girl just picks it up and it's like, I can do it too. No training required.
It's called YouTube. It's called YouTube.
Yeah, you learn anything off of YouTube.
She also had a dead grandfather helping.
Yeah, she had.
Whoa! Spoilers! Wait.
Oh,
we have a section for that.
Jaren. Oh, good.
Sorry,
but you know what? Even with all the nitpicky shit, the nostalgia here is great. The minion thing that they did with the marshmallows that's in the it's unnecessary, but I was like, oh, this is fun for me, So otherwise, I thoroughly enjoyed it. My kid was laughing along with it. He even told me that the little girl was the best shot out of all the Ghostbusters because all the rest of the Ghostbusters can't hit shit for shit.
Facts.
So it was I really enjoyed it. I'm glad they finally came out with a movie that is a sequel to the original timeline of movies.
Yes.
And I'm here for anything they put after this, as long as it's still in this same universe.
Okay. I'll jump into it because I think we're going to do a trend here of letting Jaren go last, since we already know what he's going to lean, except for 2016. Going into it, so life after 2016's Ghostbusters seems like it's going to be a lot brighter. I think I made a joke last week that 2016's Ghostbusters had to die a slow death for this one to walk. And it improves in this one because this one tonally feels like it could be a sequel to the originals. Not in the comedic sense, not in the sense of the atmosphere of New York City, but in the family and the fact of the relationships. One of the biggest things about Ghostbusters that's not talked about enough is the relationships between, especially the original three, and then if you go into the sequel, all four of them. This one hammers that home a lot. It does it in a weird way, not in a typical way of just putting the three people or four people together and letting them work it out. It does it in a way of saying that, hey, we're building this relationship amongst ourselves, but also this relationship links to the past. And I thought that was an interesting take on the film to say, okay, this is Egon's legacy. How does Egon's legacy, which seems to be disconnected from his descendants, but bring it to a whole? And I think if you were going to do this movie any other way, it fails because it did enough to link us to the past that we were able to buy into things, but also did enough new that we were able to say, oh, that's fun, that's interesting. And an example of this is what Jason said. Yeah, these brilliant minds built this equipment and stuff, and now this 12-year-old girl figures it out in X, Y, and Z. Well, they do a good job of showing that this 12-year-old girl is very, very handy,
She's
very,
smart.
very intelligent. So almost to the degree, if you give her a set of directions of how to do something, I feel like she's very capable to do this. And that set of directions just happen to be, as Jared spoiled earlier. So with that being said, the only, I have some nitpicky things before I go into nitpicky things. I want to kind of examine the roles that are played here. So even my man Flynn, they're going to definitely make him the and yes, I know, guys, I know it's Finn. I know everybody's commenting below.
Pronouncing it wrong on purpose.
Yeah, why do you keep saying his name is this? Look at the previous segment. That's why we call him Flynn now. But even him being handy capable when it comes to putting together the Ecto One, which again it's in the trailer. You see him driving it in the trailer. So people are like, "Oh, spoilers!" No, you see, but he puts it together again. That's showing that he has a knack for mechanics and using his hands, which his grandfather did as well as Ray did. We look at one of the characters that are new to the film, Podcast. He is what we all really want, because if you can't have Bill Murray, give me a toned down comedic relief. I don't need someone to be Bill Murray. I don't need someone to be Peter Venkman. I need someone to just give us some of the relief without having to do the extra, because you realize very, very recently, real quickly in this film, how over the top Peter Venkman is compared to everything else in this film, in some scenes at the end. So I enjoyed that he's going to fill that role as the guy that needs everything more explained to it to kind of bridge the gap. But also he has a role because out of all of the people involved, he's probably the most adjusted to the things that go on in the real world. Or let's say if we have the studious type, he would be closer to that because of the podcast he does. And then we bring in we got to bring in the token black character, which again, she didn't get much of it, but a lot close to the first one. I mean, if you want to keep it real, Winston isn't in much of the first one.
He's
either.
not in the first 2/3 of the movie. He's not even in
right.
the last half of the second act.
Right. So to bring her in and then make her, ride or die with them is a good add-on too. So to say all this movie feels very Star Wars Force Awakens to me, which is not a bad thing. Let's go back to Force Awakens. Most of us loved Force Awakens when it came out. The only negative we had was that it was too close to the original, but we were like, oh, it's a good start. If you're going to re-kick a franchise, make it feel familiar. This felt familiar. This felt like we were getting back in the seat with some old friends and being like, unlike the Eternals, these were my friends from college, and now I'm back in the seat with them and I have this ride just with maybe their kids are involved now too. So it did feel familiar. It did feel fun. Right. The only nitpicky things I had was that I do think that some of the urgency they could have gave Flynn to really cement his role kind of got undercut by some stuff that happened, which we'll talk about in spoilers. And I also think that the heartwarming, touching moments went a little longer for me than I wanted. So, but whatever. But let's talk about some of the things I enjoyed. I enjoyed that the gadgets, which me and Jared were both gadget heads, but definitely in this one, I enjoyed the gadgets they did, the stuff they came up with, the new feel of it. And I also felt that putting the setting where it was allowed for the old technology to feel right. Because if you did this back in New York City, how much of New York City's advanced since '84 to now, some of this stuff would have been unbelievable. We can't imagine Ecto 1 streaming down New York City, splitting corners because we know what New York City's traffic is like. Like it would have been things we had to suspend. Right. It would have had to spend a lot of disbelief to make it work in New York City again. So making it work in this small town where nobody seems to be that technologically advanced, nobody really cares about anything but the small town. It works. So when this technology comes out and it happens, it feels, because the technology is from 1984, preferably, it feels like it's suited perfectly for this town. So I thought the location of doing this was very, very smart as well. But yeah, that's my review, man. I loved it, man. And everybody knows for the longest time I hated on this movie. So for me to come in and say I loved it, after the first time I saw it, I was like, this is going to be Stranger Things. And then the other previews, I'm like, Jaron, you know this is going to suck. I used to tell Jaron that like once a month. You know that movie's going to suck, right? And to come in and say that I loved it shows you that like it did its job very well. All right, Jaron, what do you think?
All right, spoiler free. Let's go.
Here we go. Spoiler free.
Jason Reitman did an amazing job of walking the line between introducing us to new characters that weren't boring, while also giving us the right nostalgia that when it did show up, we were excited to see it. The biggest pitfall I think that this movie could have fallen into was making it so that every time there was a nostalgia point, everybody was excited, but then it would cut to what was happening in the present day or with the present characters. And we're like, oh, all right, now I got to wait for the next one. He made the characters. McKenna Grace's Phoebe was phenomenal. She was like one of those atypical neural types, kind of a young Sheldon-y kind of thing going on.
He's definitely on the spectrum.
Definitely on the spectrum, but she was phenomenal. And yeah, I think the play off with the podcast character, he and her, their back and forth, really, it was heartwarming. It was if you've ever moved as a kid into a new place and had to try to make friends again from the start without all the history and all the knowledge and everything, it's a difficult thing. So there was something that hit me there that I enjoyed. I am a huge Gadget fan. Part of, when I think of my favorite 80s movies or my favorite movies growing up, they all have that in common, is they had something very, very cool that I always wanted to own or have myself, be it the DeLorean from Back to the Future, the Ecto 1, or Proton Pack or a Trap. Like even the PKE meter. Yeah, I mean, the whip from like being good with the whip for like Indiana Jones.
Ooh, you should let that one.
Ooh, yeah. Shit.
Keep going, Jay. I'm sorry. I derailed you.
No, but the you can tell Jason Reitman is probably closer to our age, because I think that he had a lot of similar love, and he gave that love. He showed it in his directing style. Part of it was to there were a couple of scenes where he really zoomed in on the PKE meter to like obscure who was using it. But oftentimes, like, you could tell that there was just a genuine appreciation of the gadgetry that follows, or that makes this story possible. Also, he upgraded one thing with the gadgets, and it was a spoiler. I don't know. It's nothing that has to do with the story, but he made somebody at some point upgraded their PKE meter to have a trigger on the back that turned it into a shock, kind of a taser, a ghost taser. And I thought that was a phenomenal evolution of the gadget was still feeling true to the
I felt like he upgraded 3 things.
Okay, yeah. Well, sure. I mean, again, I'm trying to be unspoilery. So, and we'll get into a lot of detail here coming up, but he made the new story compelling enough, and the characters were fleshed out enough that I enjoyed it. Yes, Flynn got the short end of the stick. We could have used more Paul Rudd, and honestly, we could have used more Lucky.
We could always use more Lucky.
Yeah, she
Facts.
When she was there, when she was on screen, she was commanding the scene, and it was great every time. So
more Bokeem Woodside as well.
Yeah, and I mean, she
Facts.
had that. Yeah, she kind of brought that very mildly, but it was there, that kind of Murray skeptic kind of like very cool about everything going on. She seemed to handle everything that was being thrown at her, just like, all right, I guess we're going to go this route now. So she had that vibe that I liked, that just a little too cool for school, but just the right amount. And I dug it.
She's a child. Just making sure you know that.
Yeah. Jason, number one brought that up. Seeing and I thoroughly agree, but I have to give you all the credit for this thought, because I agree with it and I want to echo it. The idea that we are using kids and not adults, it takes this level of how'd you put it exactly? They were able to kind of deal with the things that they were seeing and without the fear and learned like let's protect ourselves behavior that comes from being around a lot longer. I guess.
I made the comment.
I want to preserve my life because I know shit's out there to hurt me.
I made the comment that them putting it with kids works because kids in this generation have seen so much through YouTube, social media, and internet that anything that happens around them and to them isn't as terrifying to us because we've seen things go bad really quickly. For them, they haven't because they've just taken so much in. So when these things happen that we would be like, oh my God, they're just like, oh man, that sucked. Like, because this is that generation now. Like,
they've been desensitized to all the horrors of life because it's their life is they're on a burning planet of fire.
Right.
Oh,
nothing scarier than global warming to them. Right.
And a lot of people in the early reviews said that they were worried that there wasn't going to be enough of the funny. I either disagree with their interpretation or maybe they wrote that before they actually saw it.
They lack joy in their heart.
Yeah, the interplay between the family, between Paul Rudd and anybody he talked to, it was great. It was sharp. It was quick, and it was heavily sarcastic, and it was fantastic. It had a vibe to it, and I was there for it. So. All in all, I really enjoyed this movie. I've seen it 3 times now, and every time I've seen it subsequently, I've enjoyed it a little bit more. Yeah. So the first time I saw it, I was like, all right, yeah, I dig it. The second time I saw it, I was like, okay, no, I'm really enjoying this, and the last time I saw it with you guys, it was phenomenal, and it's the emotional point. The big one did go on a bit too long. I think I agree with Jason on that one, but it gets me every time. So
I was tearing up.
Yeah.
For those of you to know, is that we all plan on going to see this movie together yesterday on Saturday at 3:50.
Right.
To find out when we get there that Jaren has already seen the movie twice.
I managed to get off work early on Thursday. It was literally 2 minutes before the last showing at the movie theater across from where I work. So I was like,
knowing he already had a plan to see this on Saturday.
I already had the ticket for Saturday. I still.
So before we get into spoilers, real quick, let's take an ad break. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into spoiler territory. Let's go ahead and let you start, Jaren, since you ended. Let's go ahead and start with spoilers.
Sure.
Where do you want to go with that right there? Do you want to talk about the ending? You want to start there, or do you want to talk about the gadgetry?
And let's kind of round robin this. Don't everybody jump in where you feel the need. I'll just kind of.
I feel the need.
Don't have Jared reclaim his time. Don't have Jared reclaim his time.
Can I reclaim my time? So spoilers, like the worst kept spoiler in the world. This family is Spanglers, and honestly, after watching it the third time, they go to great lengths not to say their last name over and over and over again in the movie.
I would imagine the kids, their last name is not Spangler. But unless my theory is correct that she was born, because the actress that plays the mom is like 40. But like if she was Egon's kid after Ghostbusters 2,
it would have to be.
She would only be like 32. So that means she would have had Flynn at 15 or 16 or 17, which is possible.
When you think your dad abandoned you, sometimes those are the choices you make in
Yeah.
this life. So.
Though I saw another theory that Egon had already been, before Ghostbusters 1, had already been married and divorced by that time.
Oh, that could work.
Because we don't know anything about their personal lives before.
No.
But the way she says it, though, she says, you know, he lived with them and then he left to go to Oklahoma. So in my mind, that makes her born after 89.
What makes you think she's like 40?
The actress is 40.
Oh yeah, but the act, you know that works.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if we're going by the actress's age, she would be born before he ever became a Ghostbuster.
Sure.
But if she is the age in which I think she is, that means she had to be born after 1989. Yeah. And therefore she would have had Flynn at 17, which is fine. It's okay to have kids early.
I'm not gonna say okay,
also this
it's
means,
a thing.
Yeah. It's a thing.
Also, this means that there are several years, or at least a year or two after 2, where they did run a successful business that was slowly dying.
Well, see, in my mind, it's like every time they did something, like when they fought Gozer for the first time, spoiler alert, they fight him for the second time.
Oh yeah, like, Gozer's the big bad.
The reason why they were able to be Ghostbusters is because Gozer was about to come up, and by them beating Gozer, there were no more ghosts. And then in Ghostbusters 2, the reason they were back again was because Vigo the Carpathian was making more ghosts. Right. They beat Vigo, no more ghosts. So like, unless another great big thing was going to happen again, it was kind of like, yeah, you keep putting yourself out of business because you keep doing your job too well.
I think from a story perspective,
which they say it, yeah.
I think from a story perspective, they could be like, there have been 2 massive traumatic spiritual events on this plane of existence. Therefore, the fabric of reality is a bit weakened, and now we're just seeing ghosts come through without the need of a major, ghost magnet or whatever, being it Gozer or Vigo or whoever. Like, I think the fabric of reality is a bit weakened now as a result. I think that would be a great story point. Just be like, yeah, now there's just normal ghosts every now and again, and they're not all over the place.
Here's a ghost that spits nails at you. Here you go.
Yeah, Muncher, Josh Gad, I guess. Muncher was great. I like that he provided a physical danger, much more so than a lot of the ghosts we've seen in Ghostbusters, because you get caught by that shit, and that's hot metal that's burning through you.
And which it's in my mind why I even hate why this is kids, because why are kids chasing after this ghost and shoot the bullets at them?
Yeah.
If I knew my kid was capable of understanding this technology and was really good at it, I'm like, yo, no, you're not doing this shit.
She seemed mad. Like you know what I mean? Like when he first spits at them and they're hiding behind that pipe, she comes up and she looks pissed. She's like, "Oh, you son of a bitch."
This ghost
you endangered me and my one friend.
I mean, she almost shot the sheriff. So I mean,
let's kind of focus it on this one. So, yay or nay on the old cast coming back for the cameo at the end?
Yeah,
here for
you had
it.
to.
They all look rough.
Yeah, because they're 70-year-old men.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah.
I will say this: I'm a nay on it. I will admit I'm a nay on it. I felt like it took away the point of having the new team, quote unquote, because you could have eliminated them and still made that movie the same movie.
Yeah,
like they were just a distraction, but you could have made some other reason that could have been a distraction and had it. It was great to see it when I was there. I did pop in the theater for it, but then after it sat with me as I got home, it was like it was a cheap pop. Like it would have been better off if just they weren't there and Egon's ghost led that team, united them, and brought them to that win. Kind of like in that kind of almost extreme Ghostbusters-esque, where he was like their mentor of the new group, and then he fades and leaves, and his new team goes with it, and then like you could even had one of them, possibly Winston, because he had the money, show up at the end. Yeah, right. Yeah, show up at the end, and maybe or Ray, because she did call Ray, show up at the end, and we realized that Egon was right, and all the stuff that happened, and him having to deal with the fact of like he didn't come and help Egon when he needed, but then giving some resolution to him. And then that could have been a nice bow and wrapped it up, and him acknowledging them as like the new team without having to say it, I think would have worked fine. But it was cool seeing them, but it wasn't needed. It was literally just there to say, hey guys, old team, yay.
I think in all these nostalgia sequel bait things that it's expected that we're going to have like the older actors in these movies, because otherwise what was the point of even doing it, right? Like in my mind, it's like the reason why anybody even cares about this movie is because they have nostalgia for the past, 2 movies or whatever. So not having them in it would just be kind of a disservice to the fandom, even though it's cheesy as fuck and pointless as fuck. Not having it, it's just like, what's the point of doing it if you're not going to have them in it?
Yeah,
Why did we wait 30 years for this movie to come out if there was no Bill Murray or no?
Well, do we? Because I think we waited just to have a good Ghostbusters sequel. Necessarily doesn't mean they had to be in it to make it good. Like, let's be completely honest. If 2016 was way better, we wouldn't care that they weren't really in it as their people. Like, let's just be completely honest. If 2016 worked,
that bothered me.
It didn't need them.
I'm just saying, if it would have worked, it would have been Dan Aykroyd, a cab driver. The fuck, no.
I'm just saying, like, if they weren't in it at all, and the story worked, let's be real. We all know that good stories for IPs that we like, we will accept. So I agree with you, Jason, that like, yes, they put butts in the seats. Let's call it what it is.
Yes.
I don't think it was needed. Yeah, I don't think it was
I
needed
agree
at
with
all.
you. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
It's definitely not needed. But my thing is it's expected.
Yeah, there was a lot of because I brought it up to a couple bar patrons, and they were like, "Oh, are their first question, and honestly, sometimes their only question, are the original people going to be back?" I think that for a lot of people, that is the original creators or the original actors being in it is them signing off on it being a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So if they weren't in it, people would be like, "Oh, it's probably going to suck."
Definitely in this case.
Yeah.
So, well, 2016 has made that true. If they weren't going to be in it, 2016 has put that taste where, like you said, that's why if you said no, they're not in it, they're like, "Oh, fuck that." Like,
exactly. Oh, they're not in it. It's a new story. It's a great story. They're like, yeah, I'm not there for it. It immediately. It's almost like they'd have to be there. So, plus, I mean, I know they're all showing up for Jason anyway. They're like, "Come on, buddy."
I guess my next one on that too, just going to spoiler territory. What did you think about the using of Gozer again, and like what just that whole thing? Like, because
first of all, yeah, absolutely fantastic. The way that they tied it back to Ivo Shandor. Ivo Shandor was a big player in at least the history of him was a big player in the video game. They already fleshed him out a little bit more. He was kind of almost a throwaway line in the original when they're in jail and they're talking about the selenium girders.
Yeah.
No, nobody ever made it like that. That line. The Gozer worshiper stuff. So I loved that they not only made it understandable that he would have access to that weird shit by having his family own a mining company, and they were able to
own town.
And he built town to do it. Like I love that. I also really like how so this is the second time we see the whole Gozer thing happen, right? So they really kind of like took we only got to see it once in the first movie with the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. And this kind of, because now we got to see it a second time and from a different angle, we got to see almost like the mechanism behind what it takes to get a Gozer into this plane of existence, and how it's like, oh, that, I mean, we understood it in the first one, but this one did a really good job of showing it again from a different angle. And I loved it. And I absolutely, one of my favorite scenes is watching Gozer become half of a specter or a spirit or a shade, because they pulled the Gatekeeper or the Keymaster, the Gatekeeper back into a trap. Like it ripped half of her ability to maintain herself on this plane, or itself on this plane of existence.
Their self.
Yeah. And I like seeing part of her its essence like be ripped forcibly from it when they trap the Keymaster. I thought that was very cool. And it was actually kind of, I loved how it's not like hardcore horror, because again, we're still talking about Ghostbusters, but she wasn't or it wasn't very. I mean, it was
Damn.
kind of scary looking when it was coming through the
Mhm.
cornfield and everything, and you could see like the skeleton and all the beastly qualities. I also like they leaned in on the beast a little bit, like when it first shows, like it gets up on its platform or whatever. She like it's on its hands and its knees, and it like growls at one of its like the gatekeeper, the keymaster. Like it's like it's just an animalistic force of evil, and I dig it. I like it, and I was there for it. I really liked how they fleshed that out.
Jason, your thoughts on
For
Gozer?
me personally, the whole Gozer thing was, I like it, but I kind of don't like it. Usually in sequels, you want to step it up to something like kick it up another notch. Maybe like, as you were saying, like, Gozer has in the comic books, Gozer has a brother or whatever named Tiamat. Maybe they could obviously have to change the name because we just had Tiamat in the internals, but maybe it'd be, it's still the Evo Shandor thing would still be there, but maybe a different or even more powerful deity that he figured out later would have been better. And also like the fact that the gatekeeper and the keymaster are the only two adult characters we know in the whole entire movie.
Well, it's Lucky.
See, well, yeah, after they saved her mom from it, but like in the first Ghostbusters, it was Louis Tully and Dana because they lived in the building.
Mhm.
Like in this one, it's like there's no reason for them to go after Paul Rudd other than the fact that he was the only other adult in here. I understand
or the fact that he went to Walmart at night randomly
Yeah.
just to get ice cream. Like,
just to get ice cream.
Go to
Like,
Walmart,
there
get
they
down.
are. We knew he was going to be there.
Also,
I mean, I
was that a
understand
nod
the
to Wink?
mom because
Was that a nod to Wink, the Baskin Robbins?
Yeah.
Baskin Robbins always finds out.
yeah.
like I understand the mom being the gatekeeper because I'm assuming the gatekeeper killed Harold Ramis Egon in the beginning of the movie, so like they have some sort of connection to that place. But it's like it could have been anybody, and yet it chose her boyfriend. So I thought that was a little bit like a little bit of a stretch for me, but either way, it still was enjoyable. So like
maybe there's something there in that it once the gatekeeper is established, it is more susceptible. The keymaster is somebody that's pining after the gatekeeper. Like Paul Rudd wanted to bang the gatekeeper, and Louis Tully really wanted to bang Sigourney Weaver. So
I mean that may be true, but he got gatekeep before or keymaster before she got gatekeeped.
Yeah. I mean,
so it went after him first, and maybe there's some sort of paranormal, like they knew they want to bang each other, so they picked two people. Right. I don't know, but like you're in a town full of people, full of teenagers, and you don't pick two of the horniest.
You got a pool of people to choose from.
Yeah, and also like when they were in the burger shop looking at the map, and the other kids were around them looking at it, I thought they were all going to get into it. I was like, all those other kids. That would have been cool to see all the kids of the town. That would have been a little bit more acceptable for me than the fact that they were kids. If all the kids in the town, got in on this ghost busting activity, but they didn't. It was a wasted opportunity. Or they probably shot some scenes and they just couldn't do it.
They probably
either way, it's neither here nor there.
Well, shout out to Tully, man. Bangs Dana and gets to bang Janine. So shout out to Tully. He's the real MVP of these movies. Yeah.
Dude, he also had that blonde chick up in
the
ditzy-ass
blonde in the apartment. Yeah,
and he told her to stay. She was like, "All right,
Holy
fucks,
let's dance."
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah, man. Shit, Tully, sex machine, baby. Let's go into any other spoilers like to touch on before we move on.
Egon Spengler dies.
Yep. Also, that was talk about a shock the first time I saw it. When she calls Ray with her one phone call, and he's like, Egon Spengler can rot in hell. I was like, oh shit, what do we do? What?
Did he fuck his wife or something? Damn.
Damn. And then he brought it down. He broke it down. I love that they're talking about the fuel cells and everything. I was like, oh, okay. All right.
Also, what a shitty town where they're just like, yeah, we're going to arrest this 12-year-old child. We're going to put him in jail.
For joyriding in a small town.
Oh, your one phone call, you better make it quick. We're not automatically calling your parents. Like, what the fuck, dude? Keem Woodside, you're a bad sheriff, all right?
Or a good sheriff. depending on how you want to look at it.
No, he's
Not
a
giving
bad
these kids
sheriff.
no
Should
white
not be holding
privilege.
minors.
Well, I'm assuming they called his parents because the parents showed up. So
Then what does she need another phone call? Shut the fuck up, child. Stay in your chair. So you don't get a phone call. You're a minor. You have no rights.
Lenient and gave her the phone call. It was bad because he did the call. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah,
I'm
go
always
call
gonna
some
support
old white
Keem.
dude in New York.
I'm gonna come support for Keem. He was giving them the reverse of white privilege. He like, this is how I get treated. Shut up and sit in this cell. All right, let's go into some random questions on Afterlife or around Afterlife. Would you want to see more sequels of this?
Fuck yeah.
Well, this ends, since we're still in spoiler territory, this ends with the Ecto-1 going across like the Brooklyn Bridge, right? Into New York City again.
Going back to New York City.
So they left us effectively in New York.
Oh, well, let's not do spoilers or questions, but we're already here now because I chopped those up and put them out. Don't worry about it. It's over there. Would you have preferred if Egon would have gotten with Janine?
Yes.
Nah.
It would have been nice.
She fucked Tully after in 89. So like it does she was all about him in 84, but in 89 she was with a whole nother dude. So I don't know. Maybe they got back together and Tully's like, oh, I'm cool with it. It's fine. We're all friends. You know, he's a bigger man because he's got a fucking horse's fucking cock, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Listen, I think they wanted to probably, but it would have been difficult to have Janine back in and then be like, because this person has issues with their parentage. So it's like,
yeah,
if it had been a scenario where Janine had been the mom, then it would have been like, she spent her life making excuses for Egon because she was too close. She was close enough to know what was going on, or it would have been a complicated thing. So I think that they just optioned to make the mom a non-issue because
mothers aren't important.
It's a wrinkle that they would have had to draw out a lot. Probably,
pacing. If we do get a sequel, let's say Oliver, the baby from Ghostbusters 2, is in it. Oh, Oscar, there you go. What trope would you give him to? Because we always have to give these people tropes when they return. Like they can't just be well-respected, normalized human beings. Something has to be wrong with them. What trope are you giving him if you bring him back?
He would be the spoiled legacy character who's like, I know what I'm doing. I've done this all my life.
Yeah,
I've been busting ghosts before you were even born.
Yeah, you don't know how to ghost bust. I know how to bust ghosts. And then he dies or something horrible.
No one can take a possession like infant me.
Doing this is for you, baby.
For you, Jared, any trope you would like to see him go with?
Yeah, I mean, if you continue the idea that Dana did all right in her being a cellist or whatever, and then she did financially well, then yeah, Oscar could be kind of a spoiled kid that is troubled and is in and out of jail, and this is his calling.
Time out. Can we go back to a little bit of spoiler things?
Okay.
I mean, I did.
This is another spoiler thing. Cut this up. If you look
45
closely,
minutes long.
Yeah. If you look closely at when the Ghostbusters are together again, if you look closely at their hands, Peter Venkman is wearing a wedding ring.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. They're married.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. Who goes and lets another woman shock their husband? Come on.
That's fair.
Facts.
I never thought Bill would have settled down, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, he was flirting with Gozer. Girl,
I think he just flirts with everybody, and just Dana just like whatever. That's him.
Yeah. That's him at this point. I wouldn't mind Oscar being a worthless drunk sellout because a lot of PTSD with being an infant and almost being possessed and being around a ghost family. A lot of PTSD we grow up with. It's like that short film of Power Rangers and all of the PTSD from, being teenagers fighting wars. Yes, Oscar should be really jacked up in the head because not a healthy environment.
That could be like a part of the sequel is the fact that maybe like the possession didn't like go away.
Right.
That maybe he's been carrying a part of Vigo his entire life. And he's like, and finally, like,
That'd be awesome.
it's 2022 or whatever. it finally comes out and starts manifesting itself. And
He starts
Oh,
giving
that
other
would be-
people headlights.
let's start
for
writing,
eyes.
Jaren. Come on, let's go.
Gives him headlight fires, or you could just say the events of this last one awakened that side of him that he was
Oh, yeah.
burying because it got more power because whatever.
A
Like you
lot
said,
of
the fabric
energy
thing.
poured through. Yeah.
Hey,
All right, well,
Hey, let's
Ghostbusters.
write it. Let's write it.
go ahead and write Jason Reitman. He'll probably take your call immediately.
We're both
Let's
good
go ahead
Jason
and-
names. He'll be like,
That's
yeah,
like
cool.
this. How could he not?